The disturbing rise of anti-whitism in America.
Well, anti-white racism being promoted on college campuses and in the media used to be somewhat amusing maybe 5 years ago because it was so odd and crazy. Sadly, it was left unchecked and has metastasized into systemic anti-whitism that now permeates schools, the government, entertainment, and social media.
I wonder if he's going to give like examples of what he means. I don't know what anti-whitism is. Again, my perspective is we live in a social materialistic world dominated by racism, white supremacy. First of all, you got to explain to me, why is there such thing as white? Why people have been classified by their skin color? If we eliminate that racial system, that problem, because I believe it's the biggest problem on the planet, then you won't have videos like Disturbing Rise of Anti-Whitism in America. There are many books. Again, read a book called Race in North America, The Origin and Evolution of Race. I believe that's the name of the book. Read there. There's also a bunch of scientific studies showing that race was just used to oppress people of color. There's a lot of stuff out there. So I would like to see if he gives examples of what he means by anti-whitism.
Of course, one of the biggest taboos of modern America is to dare say out loud that racism against white people, anti-whitism, exists and is a growing problem.
It does not exist. Again, I'm gonna say this, and a lot of people are confused about, I think we need to define the term racism. There is no way that non-white people can be racist. It's impossible. They didn't even come up with the term race. They didn't classify themselves. People who classified themselves as white classified the world. And I know people's gonna say that's impossible. Black people can. No, why are people called black? Where did that classification come from? Black people did not classify themselves. Before they were kidnapped and enslaved, they weren't calling themselves black. This is something that started in the European societies in the 1500s. On up through the 1700s. And do your research. Don't just jump to conclusion and agree with what this gentleman is saying. Do your research on it. And also, don't ever listen to me. Do your research.
Which is a large part of the reason that it's now accepted as normal in our society. It's helping the diversity, they say. Like when social justice warriors at a New York high school pressured administrators to shut down the production of the Hunchback of Notre Dame play in the name of diversity because the lead role was awarded to a white student after the auditions. The school district released a statement that said in part the cancellation was because of an attempt to be more inclusive and culturally responsive.
Oh my goodness.
And now some schools are even adopting.
Okay, that's just, all right. That's just a waste of time and energy. Here's the thing, we focus on these little, I call them whack-a-mole issues. It's just the system of white supremacy pops up these little whack-a-mole issues and people just jump at them. Like this, or the Little Mermaid being cast as a person of color. It's just these issues that non-white people just gravitate toward that actually serve no purpose. We need to focus on eliminating the whole system and replacing it with a system of justice.
A practice called cultural discipline, which means they're allowing black students to get away with causing trouble and handing out lesser punishments to them out of concerns that the school may be perceived as being racist since,
well, they've handed out a lot more severe punishments to black people in the prison system. Black people at times get 6 times longer sentences or are charged 6 times more the rate of their white counterparts for the same exact crimes. So we need to make sure that we understand that this system is doing this to us. This isn't just certain groups or certain departments. It's a whole system of thought, speech, and action.
More of them in certain school districts cause more trouble than other students for reasons you're not allowed to talk about, like more often than not being raised in fatherless homes. An editor at the Huffington Post once openly bragged on Twitter that their goal for the month was to publish pieces from less than 50% of white writers. Uber's chief brand officer wants more diversity, saying that there are too many white men who work for the company. All big tech companies are obsessed with diversity, which flies in the face of federal discrimination lawsuits that are supposed to prohibit companies from not hiring people based on race. But when it comes to discrimination against white people, everyone seems to think that it's okay. The Charity Commission, a nonprofit watchdog in the UK, encouraged charities to...
This guy, I don't know the term, I believe gaslighting. He's gaslighting people. This is what this is. He is not actually talking about the problem, the overall problem. He's picking and choosing instances that fits his narrative. right? This is exactly what he's doing. I would like to have a conversation with him, and ask him about the system, about this from slavery through the black codes, through civil rights, through all these things, Tulsa Massacre, the Omaha Massacre, Memphis Massacre, all these massacres of non-white people. And this is not just here, across the world. I would like to ask him, has that influenced people's way of thinking? That would be the question I would like to ask.
To darken up because they didn't reflect the communities that they served after they determined that there were too many white people helping with local charities, and they felt that they needed to promote diversity. Yes, too many white people helping out black communities.
I don't know what diversity means.
Racist. Speaking of the UK, the BBC thinks that the gun control movement in the United States involving the Parkland High School kids like David Hogg is too white, and some black people are apparently also upset that other anti-gun protesters used the phrase "don't shoot," which was originally used by Black Lives Matter, so that's racist too. When black people complain about white people in general, the liberal establishment embraces the criticism as necessary and frames it as an important issue that white people need to address, no matter how wildly inaccurate or exaggerated the claims are. But when white people simply point out basic irrefutable facts about certain people, such as black men being less than 7% of the U.S. population but commit almost half of all murders, or that 3/4 of black children are born out of wedlock.
Now let's look at that, right? He's bringing up these certain facts. These are probably facts. I haven't looked this up, but this is probably true. More black people struggle with 70% unwed. But yeah. Now, why is that, right? What is the problem? Why are people who have been classified as black? Let's make sure we understand what we're saying here. These men have been classified as black. Like, most of the planet is non-white, right? So why have they been classified as black? Why is it that they seem to make up most of the prison? They commit most of the crimes, which I don't believe that. I don't know. I have to look that up. I don't believe it. But why are black fathers not in the home? Because, you know what I'm saying? Why is that? I don't think he's looking at that. I think he's just showing you something to make you say, oh, yeah, that's right. That's what black people do. Yeah. I don't agree with the way he's portraying this. I would like to have a civil conversation about the whole system that is causing this, right? Why is it that black neighborhoods, they always have the poorest education, the poorest food? They have liquor stores there all the time, or maybe there's a church on every corner. And why are black people killing each other all the time? How come we're not trying to solve these problems instead of trying to point fingers, right? Well, how do we solve these problems?
Or that most black children don't have a father in the home, those statistics are labeled racist no matter the context or the purpose of pointing them out. MSNBC's Chris Hayes complained that President Trump's proposed immigration reform plan would have kept America predominantly white for 5 more years than expected, because the left are determined to overthrow the white majority as soon as possible, and they're furious that ending illegal immigration will slow down their agenda. It's expected to occur in 2045 at the rate things are going, by the way, but pointing that out without celebrating it as an amazing transformation of the country is, you guessed it, racist. During a speech denouncing Trump's plan and talking about how great immigrants are, Nancy Pelosi said that her grandson wished that he had brown skin because he sees people of color as special. One of the actors from Star Wars Rogue One, a guy named Riz Ahmed, who played Bodhi Rook, thinks that the lack of diversity in television shows is alienating young people and driving them towards extremism and into the arms of ISIS. He's Pakistani, and he believes that if young Muslims don't see characters who look like them on TV, that they won't be able to connect with the show and might run off and join ISIS. Liberals are even complaining about the lack of diversity in spin class at the gym. Is your spin class too young, too thin, and too white? Asked the Washington Post. Now there's too many white.
This is easy, like to find these kind of articles and throw them out at you. And people that think like him are just going to eat this up, going to live in the echo chamber. But I wonder if he has discussions with people who think like me, or Neely Fuller Jr., or Dr. Francis Quest Relsing, or anybody from the Gentleman's Sonetta channel. I wonder if he has ever had these kind of conversations.
People in spin class. The story recounted the horrifying experience of a black woman who signed up for a class in New York, and on the first day found that she was the only black person there, and cried that she didn't have another woman who looked like her and who understood her struggles. Obviously, she doesn't need a spin class. She needs a psychiatrist. It's getting harder to find actual racism against black people in America these days, since thankfully we've made amazing progress over the last 50 years.
Oh my goodness, he did not just invoke Martin Luther King Jr. Come on, my man. You got to do better. We got to do better. let's stop invoking Martin Luther King Jr. There are so many people, non-white people, who have fought against racism, white supremacy. We don't have to always pull up Martin Luther King as invoke his name, which is weird. Why I don't understand why we invoke Martin Luther King's name, Martin Luther King Jr.'s name, when we're speaking about people who fought against racism. Why he's the first name that comes up. I know a lot of people like Hubert Harrison, William Monroe Trotter, Harriet Tubman is a good one. You should find there you go, a hero right there. There's all kinds of names, Marcus Garvey or George Jackson or any of these other people who fought against racism, white supremacy. I don't understand why we don't invoke those names.
To live alongside one another despite our differences. But since incidences of anti-black racism have dramatically shrunk and racism is a business for liberals, they've invented a new term to describe the microscopic racism that they say still exists: microaggressions. And like bacteria, too small to see with the naked eye, racist microaggressions against people of color are supposedly everywhere. Psychology Today defines them as the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to people based solely upon their marginalized group membership. And apparently every white person is still racist, whether they know it or not, because social justice warriors say the most well-intentioned...
Okay, here's my perspective. Yes, my dear, all white people are racist. No, I don't believe all white people who classify themselves as white are racist. Now, I believe all white people are suspected racist because I don't know who is and who isn't a white supremacist between white people. Like, how do I know? And I would have to question each and every white person.
White Americans have inherited the racial biases of their ancestors, and the most harmful forms remain outside the level of conscious awareness. Only white people are guilty of committing microaggressions, though, of course, being surprised that someone of Mexican heritage doesn't speak Spanish is a racist microaggression, and so is being wrong about an Asian person's heritage. For example, if you think that someone is Chinese but they're actually Korean, that's racist too. Expecting an Asian person to be smart is also one, because that's a stereotype, they say. It's even considered a microaggression to tell a stranger Merry Christmas because they might be a Muslim or Jew. The Air Force Academy once apologized for committing a racist microaggression after they sent out a campus-wide email about maintaining a good personal appearance and used Michael Jordan as an example. He was never seen with his pants sagging below his waistline, the email noted, but that was offensive to certain people. Telling Air Force cadets not to walk around with their pants sagging halfway down their butt and their underwear showing like some thug on his way to the corner liquor store in the ghetto is racist. To highlight the double standards of Twitter's enforcement of their terms of service over the years, a conservative started the hashtag verified hate campaign, which consisted of doing searches on Twitter for racist, anti-white, and violent threats posted against white people by users with verified accounts, the ones with the little blue check marks next to their names. They uncovered hundreds of anti-white and threatening tweets from BuzzFeed employees, writers for the Huffington Post, the New Yorker, the Daily Beast, Vice News, and other mainstream publications, which were all
read that right there. This year, every white person, unless he or she makes complete obeisance to the racist anti-racism movement, is presumptively a white supremacist, because white supremacists are about definition evil. This media mania is potentially painted a target on the back of every person in America. Again, you can't label every white person a racist. But I'm just saying, how do you know, right? How do I know as a non-white person which white person is or isn't a racist? This is just my perspective. Again, don't ever listen to me. You all can do the research on your own. Just look at history, look at all the evidence, what it points to. And you could, Lely Fuller Jr. explains this stuff beautifully. He has 2 books, the United Compensatory Code book, that he says we should get a code, right? Do the most constructive thing. As every person should do the most constructive thing at all times. If we do that, then we can probably eliminate this unjust system that we live in.
By moderators and allowed to stay up on the platform. Screenshots were taken of the tweets, which were also labeled with an accompanying URL from an Internet Archive link to prove that they were real in the event that the users deleted them after they were called out, as they always do, and then tried to claim that they were photoshopped. In the ultimate ironic twist, about 1 week after the hashtag verified hate campaign was started by meme_America, their Twitter account was banned for supposedly violating Twitter's terms of service. Of course, this was before Elon bought Twitter, but we're living in a society where the Southern Poverty Law Center,
White Lives Matter, is
dedicated to harassing conservatives, and the ADL, which operates in the same fashion, have literally deemed the phrase, "it's okay to be white," to be a white supremacist slogan. I would say more, but the thought police may be watching, so you really should read my books like Liberalism Find a Cure to get my complete and uncensored analysis of what's really going on. Or get Hollywood propaganda, how TV, movies, and music shape our culture,
really
in paperback from Amazon.com.
He has a different perspective. I would like to speak to him. I would really like to sit down and have a conversation with him. You know, I don't think anything I would say to him, it'll go in one ear and out of the other. You know, I really like to talk to people who have different perspectives, especially people who have completely opposite perspectives than mine. It's always an interesting conversation. We usually never agree on much, you know, but I just hope one of us learns something. I always do. So, guys, thank you for checking me out. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments section. And on your way out, hit that subscribe button for me, hit that like button. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And until next time, my good people, peace.